Cricket et al. It's a website. It's a podcast.
Pete, it's a way of life. All right, it's Gideon Haigh over here.
Peter Lawler over here.
Welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast. The first day from National Stadium at St George's at the close of play. Australia bowled out for 286. No time for the West Indies to begin their first innings, but an interesting day. Peter Lawler, where do you think the ascendancy lies at the end of day one?
Well, it's pretty difficult to tell, really, isn't it, Gideon, until how a pitch is until you see both sides play on it. But that looked like a reasonable batting track. It had good pace. It had good bounce. I must say that the first three or four overs, I thought, oh, geez, it's slow, it's low. This isn't going to be much fun. But didn't take long for the moisture to get out of that deck and for it to harden up. And for it to give the bowlers a bit, it didn't have the same movement off the seam that we had in Bridgetown. No. But the movement was there in the air. Australia, what did they score in Bridgetown? 180. So they've scored 106 more runs. Look, the story of the day is the failure of the top order. But getting back to your question, there was a hint that this might be difficult to bat on, and that was the best of it.
Cummins chose to bat, though, didn't he? Cummins chose to bat, and Chase said he would have bowled. So two different perspectives on the optimum conditions.
I see. That's the stuff that you let in on at home. I can't hear that. I didn't hear you don't hear the pitch interview here. As I was saying, I think there was a hint at the end of the day when Elzari Joseph. Oh gosh, Peter, put your dentures in. Hang on. Elzari Joseph bowled Pat Cummins with one that scooted through low knee height. On a pitch where which had been around elbow height most of the day on back of a length. I don't think Cummins wouldn't have been happy about getting out, but he wouldn't have been unhappy about what that ball did. And
sort of leaned on his bat afterwards, didn't he? Sort of surveying the scene and thinking, what are the implications of that? Captain has to reflect on every twist in the conditions in a day's play.
I think the West Indies batters would have taken note of that and would be well aware of the damage that a Hazelwood and a Cummins can do in such circumstances. Yes. So, look, who knows at this stage? 286, time will tell. It's skinny, though. A good side should have scored a lot more runs, but yet again, the top order has not contributed as it should.
Yeah, the story again is that...
What do you reckon of it, Gideon?
Well, 5, 6 and 7 have again proved the most reliable parts of Australia's batting. They've bailed us out once more. The other thing I was going to say, Pete, 67 overs in a day, that's pretty skinny, isn't it? I mean, I know that West Indies have bowled 13 overs of spin out of 204 so far in this series, so they're always going to fall behind the over rate, but they don't hurry, do they?
No, mate.
They really don't hustle between overs.
Gideon, they were one over behind the rate after the first over. And it just got worse from there. No, they don't go about it quick. And teams just don't seem to pay much attention to that, do they? I guess you pay for it in World Test Championship demerit points, or do you still? Did England have their way on that?
I suppose West Indies aren't really thinking that it's going to be, sort of line ball them making to the final, so they can afford
that was the point I was going to make. If you know that you're really not much chance of being in the finals, well, what's to make you hurry? What's the hurry? And look, it was very hot. There was a fair bit of time lost to rain, but I assume that that's taken into the calculations. And do you know? I don't know. These are things I really don't want to know.
It just got dark, and it gets dark suddenly there, doesn't it? It all of a sudden it did seem impossible for the West Indies to begin against Hazelwood.
Yeah, look. It's
and Cummins.
So, you couldn't bat here. There's no lights at this stadium. So
right. Okay.
At least I don't think there are. I can't see any if there are. There might be one behind me.
So what do we make of that Australian top order, Pete?
Well, yes, what do we make? Let's take the experienced players out of it and focus yet again on Constas and Green, because we are on Constas and Green watch here. There are three Test innings left before England arrive in Australia. 3 test innings for Sam Constas and Cameron Green to prove that they are Australia's opener and number 3 batsman. That's high office, particularly Green. Constas too, of course. Constas, at least he didn't look as scrambled as he looked in the first test. And that is a significant achievement, because I think to look at 6s and 7s like he did in that test at Bridgetown, admittedly it was more difficult to play. I thought, that you could really play, you in cricket, you're always playing your last innings, and you could be dragging that sort of to mix the metaphors, that psychological mud onto the carpet of this innings. He didn't. He started with some pretty good shots. I mean, he pulled the first delivery from Shamar for 4. That was when before the wicket had sped up. He played a couple of nice drives. But look, what disappointed me with Constas and with Green was that both fell when they shouldn't have fallen. I really think it was a temperament failure. Constas and Khawaja had got to 47 runs. The drinks were about to be brought onto the field when Khawaja gets out. Yeah. Now you say, okay, Constas has to stay in it and be there and reset at drinks. He doesn't. He falls out with the score on 47. So Australia go from none for 47 to 2 for 47, right on drinks.
And it's a wide one too.
That is the point too. Yeah. That's the point with him and with Green. We get to the lunch break, and Australia are 3 for 93. By that stage, Travis Head's there. I don't like seeing Travis Head out in the middle 45 minutes before lunch on the first day. But they got to lunch, or they should have got to lunch. He nicked a ball that was dropped in the final over. He found himself back on strike for the final.
He was dropped at cover, wasn't he? He was sort of throwing his hands at the ball, and it was a pretty straightforward catch, frankly. Really. I mean, that was a
cover,
gift to the West Indies.
I think I wrote gully, but anyway, if you're reading the story, you can make that correction in your mind.
And look, he had hit a couple of nice drives off Alzari, and generally looked in better order, or the played and missed a fair bit.
But to get to my point, to have a reprieve in the penultimate, in the last over before the break, and then to play that bloody shot at a ball that's on a 6-stump line, somewhat similar to Constas, on the last delivery of the session, that's an unforgivable sin in my. Well, it's not an unforgivable sin, but that's a sin in my mind. And George Bailey and Cameron Green, I've noticed. George Bailey, and Andrew McDonald, I've noted in my copy, were standing up there like Roman emperors on the balcony looking down as he walked in. And as Tom Decent suggested and I stole from my copy, an old school coach would be waiting inside the dressing room with their arms folded like, what the F was that stun? And look, it is an egregious error. You've been given a chance. You've been given a life. You've got one ball to face. All you need to do is to get into lunch, have your meal, contemplate how you're going to work out the next session. Talk to the smart people in there with all the data and things like that, and suggest maybe you do this, maybe you do that. But he didn't, and that worries me. You've questioned his technique at number 3 today. I'm questioning his temperament. What do you think, Gideon?
Well, technique and temperament, that doesn't leave much left, does it? We say that he's auditioning.
I still like his hair.
We say that. I mean, it's interesting. If Green is bowling by summer, is he necessarily going to be a candidate for number 3? I sort of can't follow exactly what the next twist in Cameron Green's career is going to be. If he's not going to bat at number 3 in Australia, what's the point of him batting at number 3 here?
Well, hang on a minute. So where would he bat in the summer?
Maybe he wouldn't get picked. I mean, I think he's batting at number 3 because that's where the vacancy is with Marnus out of the side. But, none of this is bad for Marnus. Just saying.
No, but in an ideal world for Australia, and this is what the selectors and coaches want, is that lineup to be set in stone when the summer comes. And it's not going to happen. So there's going to be more changes, aren't there? Well, I'm sorry. It's not that it's not going to happen, but at this stage, there's a bit of a race against time to bed it down.
Yeah. Look,
So you think that? I mean, you think Cameron Greed's just keeping that seat warm until Marnus?
Well, I'm struggling to think how do you get Green and Webster into the team if they're both bowling? You don't need extra bowling option.
You get them into the team if Green can hold down number 3. I guess.
Well, at the moment, that experiment, I guess they're going to repeat that experiment until it succeeds in the great tradition of these Soviet scientists.
It's very funny, yes.
Yeah. So look, indeterminate day for both of those. Indeterminate day for Uzi and Smith as well. Uzi got one of those weird sort of French cricket LBWs that he now seems to get. Round the wicket from Alzari, hitting the top of leg.
Shaped in on him, didn't it? If the umpire hadn't have given it, he wouldn't have been out. But the umpire gave it, and he was out. So.
Yeah, and he's got he's got the hook, he's got the pull as the release shot, and that's kind of seems to be about it with Uzi at the moment.
Yeah,
but I would like to see him coming up with a few more options. Smith, I mean, that can happen. He top edged a pull shot from Alzari down to fine leg.
Well, that had a classic Smith setup, that dismissal.
Yeah.
There's a nice family from Australian family from. Actually, I won't say where they're from to save their embarrassment. Who was sitting up there? I'd met them on the beach last night, and their kid was running back and forth just on top of the side screen, and. It took some people some time to pick it up, and then sometimes to apprehend the child, and then to bring him or her to heel. And of course the short ball, he was out that delivery. I'd seen that once before with Sachin Tendulkar at Nagpur in 2004, where he was put off, and dismissed after sort of pulling out of the shot delivery, whatever it was.
So 4 for 93 at lunch, and that's another disappointing morning for Australia. Fortunately, we have the bedrock of resistance posed by Head, Webster, and Carey. They put in 116 in the second session. Webster with the 2 left-handers. I think that made it a little bit difficult for the West Indies to find a regular line and length. And of course, the fact is that they're all free scorers, especially Head and Carey. They can take the game away from you quite quickly. And once again, you saw the value of Carey. You talked in your piece today, Pete, about some technical changes that Carey had made. Can you talk us through those?
Oh, look, I'm not a great one on technique, Gideon. That's your area. You run the technique department at Cricket et al.
Tremendous overthinker on my own technique.
I can exclusively reveal that he actually now he does the double tap. He now starts with the bat raised in the T20 manner. Okay, so he has the bat cocked, waiting, but only for the quicks. I noted today when he was facing the spin bowlers, he starts with the bat in the more traditional place.
Yep.
That was the craft that he worked on at the Major League Cricket last year. He got called in. I ran into him at Pat Cummins' climate camp in Sydney after the MLC tournament, and he said it was a paid training camp. It was fantastic.
Yeah, right.
I just netted and got paid. He made the most of his time there, and his returns since have been excellent. I mean, he was the 5th highest scorer in the Sheffield Shield, but he played half the games of almost everybody else. He scored centuries at the start of the summer. He scored centuries in the Shield final. He scored a century in Sri Lanka, a good century in Sri Lanka. It seems to have made a difference to his batting, but it's also the mindset of those three. Hey, look, he's not a number 3, but that's the kind of thing that you need from your number 3 to a degree too, isn't it? Your number 3 needs to be, need to be batters who can put pressure back on the fielding side. Excuse me, I need to clear my throat. And that is what those 3, Head, Carey and Webster, do so well. I noted that Carey brought up his half century because first slip wasn't there, second slip was. The ball went in that gap. There's only one reason there's a gap there. It's because they're trying to cover the boundaries because he's been hitting so aggressively. Look, he gives away chances because he hits the ball in the air. But he's playing some really good cricket shots these days. It's kind of, it dances down the wicket. He doesn't quite have the lair of Dean Jones, but that some of those little skips down the wicket and those lofted drives are beautiful to watch. And he gets a hell of a lot of power in them without much effort.
Yeah. Look, he'd had that problem, hadn't he, with the bowlers coming round the wicket. He was getting bowled through the gate. But he seems to have sort of leaned into that by with that early pickup that you're describing. It's interesting I wonder whether it's just that when you've got the bat up high, you're set to attack, and when you're tapping the bat, your initial response is always to defend because the bat's got further to travel.
It's kind of a baseballer's setup, isn't it? In a way, ready to go.
There's quite nice. I remember in Johnny Bairstow's autobiography, he talks about how he swapped to that stand to attention stance with the bat pointed at the sky, and he just couldn't believe how much power it gave him. He was in the nets in a pre-season in Yorkshire in 2014, and he decided he was going to stand up straight. And he just drilled the first ball, the first few balls straight back past the ball. And he thought he'd never been able to hit that effectively and that efficiently before. So look, we're a long way from the Greg Chappell world of the double tap. It was important to keep your bat on the ground to regulate your rhythm. These fashions come and go. And often it's the case that, two or three batters will set a trend and other players will want to experiment.
But, I don't know. I mean, Australia would be in a lot of trouble without them. I mean, Head has only contributed 29 in this innings. Webster was run out for 59, trying to keep the strike. I thought that the West Indies bowlers is it a credit to the batsmen or is it a failure of the bowlers that they kind of lost their lines. They looked a little bit helpless in that period. They looked a little bit like they were going through the motions and just trying to dry the runs up, and they couldn't dry the runs up. But that is the power of positive batting.
How big's the?
We get Ricky Ponting back at number 3, mate. That'd be all right, wouldn't it?
It's a bit hard to judge, Pete. But how big is the surface at St George's Park?
Look, it's not small, but it's not a large ground. But the outfield was slow.
Right.
I don't know if it sped up through the day or whether it sped up because the power hitters came on. The guys who were hitting the ball a little bit heavier. It was a great day sitting here in the outdoor press box. I almost had it to myself because the man who was supposed to fix the electricity hadn't arrived. So there was no power in the press box. But of course, being a climate warrior, I had my solar-powered laptop. And, I just conserved energy through the day, and I managed to find a way to plug in while everybody else went and hid up upstairs in the box of the radio station, which will remain unnamed, and I wasn't going to go in there and work. So I spent the day here. It had its advantages and disadvantages. You are exposed and we were together at Lord's, which is just the worst of press boxes in terms of being hermetically sealed from the game and from the atmosphere of the game. You're exposed to the atmosphere of the game here. Unfortunately,
to a fault. Got a few visitors,
and unfortunately, the locals really didn't show up. The bands were here playing the steel drums, and at times I did have to put on the noise cancelling headphones just to get a little bit of concentration going. And there was dancing and singing and all those things. But look, I reckon it'd have been lucky to be 1,000 people at the game today. The Australians have thinned out from the first test.
What proportion Aussies?
80%. 80%.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. And 10% perhaps of the locals were performers paid to be here.
Right.
So there's a sadness. There's a sort of sadness about that.
Yeah.
But even without people in it, this is a lovely ground to sit in. It's very open. The stands are shaded, but have gaps. Have gaps between the roof and the seating, so you can see out. And looking up now at the hills up there with those shacks on them, just got to be the best best cricket house in the world up there. It's on stilts. The washing's out on the deck. Sitting on that deck, you're looking down on the cricket ground and then over to the ocean. I look there and think, God, that's where I wouldn't mind retiring to. Unfortunately, they don't play much cricket here, so you wouldn't see a lot of cricket. You get a lot of the ocean, but it's really nice. I don't know if I can hang up, get the cameraman and give you a shot at that. Right. Let me see. It's up there. Can you see the houses up there? Probably not.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. There's a house up there that I think would be the dream home during a test match. Anyway, those are things that we're amused on.
Where's Robert McCarthy's jerk chicken stand in relation to the ground?
That's about 10 minutes walk in that direction. You just walk along the beachfront, just to the outskirts of town, and Robert's got his tent there opposite a couple of bars.
Very good.
He greeted me this morning, Danger, after I caught, because I'm catching the local bus to the ground, which drops me off at the bus stall near the jerk chicken stall. I might go and have dinner there tonight with my new best mate. I've directed a lot of Australian traffic to Danger.
Yes.
And Tammer, the Cricket Australia videographer and cameraman, he is now has devoted his life to the MMA arts.
Really?
He's very keen to go down and maybe do a session with Danger.
I think Danger, I think, lost his last 5 fights and retired in 2018. So MMA's loss has been Jerk Chicken's gain. But I'm sure there's a lot of wisdom that he can impart. Did you like that picture I ran of him in the on Cricket Hotel yesterday?
Very nice.
A shot of him and his sons. It was beautiful.
Yeah, he's got 5 or 6 kids.
Does he, right?
I was treated to videos of his children. I think they've been done in 2 installments by the looks of the ages of them, and they're spread out.
Okay.
Some are in Venezuela, and some have been in America, and he's spread his love, Danger.
Okay, right.
Around the world. The youngest one was doing sort of rap dancing and singing. Great hair, good-looking kid, actually.
God, he sounds like he should be in a Sam Constas Instagram reel, doesn't he?
He does sound like a Sam Constas Instagram reel, Gideon. Yeah, no, the Australian fans were very excited today. We're sitting. There's a group of them sitting just in front of the press box. Mm-hmm. In the full sun. By God, I don't know how people can drink so much, Gideon. They make me appear quite abstemious, to be honest. There was I've got to say, there's pretty loosely policed ground. So at times these guys are wandering sort of out towards the boundary and sitting in the cameraman's chair, and one's climbed up and joined in the press box until he got a few harsh words from Peter Lawler, who had invoked the fury of Malcolm Corn.
You asked him first if he was a subscriber, of course.
If he was, he'll be cancelling his subscription after what I said to him. And a couple were just trying to leave via the ground just before we came on air, Gideon, and one fell over and has knocked over the advertising hoarding and smashed some technical equipment there. But, hey, look. They're young. They're probably in their mid-60s. They're in the prime of life. What else are you going to do?
Yeah,
There's 2 really sweet kids here, kids. I don't know. You're not on social media, but
no.
Do you know the Shep mates?
Oh, yeah. You were talking about them yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, did I mention them on the?
You mentioned them. Well, you mentioned them to me off air, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are these kids who do social media. They sort of, they do lots of sort of comedy stuff. They're twin brothers, and they mime sports commentary and they do other stuff like that. Really delightful. I think they're only 23 years old. They're over here. Yeah. God, imagine what we'd be doing if we were 23. Would we be doing social media cricket coverage like that? They've been sponsored over by the West Indies Cricket Board. Has helped them get here.
Right.
They're having the times of their lives. They're going to turn 24 on the plane on the way out of here, apparently. But I've enjoyed their company. They've been in the box, and they're really sweet kids. They're from Mornington Peninsula.
Yeah, right. And they're footy too, you were saying.
Yeah, and their dad's a chicken farmer. Well, he doesn't actually farm the chickens. He has invested in a series of chicken farms in South Australia. And I asked one of them, I said to one of them, are they battery farms? And he said, I think it's electricity and a bit of solar.
Tish.
Mate, have you not heard of battery farms? He says, no, never heard that phrase before.
Okay,
How can your dad be a chicken farmer and you've never heard of battery farming? It's a pretty funny line, though, I got to say. Inadvertently funny.
Yes.
It's got you rolling.
Link him up with Mr. McCarthy.
You'd be laughing if you weren't sitting down, I'm sure. Maybe it's the delivery. Anyway,
the game meandered a bit after rain, didn't it? And
a bit like cricket at El meanders,
lost,
mate.
Cummins and Stark and Lyon at the end, and it really rather fizzled out. But look, at least you're going to get to Saturday, so there might be an opportunity for the population of St Vincent to come on and support this rare test match, this rare commodity in their region. And it looks like it's going to be another low-scoring one, which is always good. You don't, when one team gets 600 odd, as India has against England, and quickly reduces the opposition to 3 for, it then becomes a little bit lopsided. But
I hadn't had a chance to see any of that test, Gideon. I'm assuming that it's an absolute road and only going to get roadier.
Like
Goodman Gill, 269, batted for 509 minutes, 387 balls, 34s and 3 sixes.
Yeah,
that's a big first innings score.
And no chances. Just looked absolutely effortless. Yeah.
Yeah, and England lost 3 quick wickets at the top of the order, or 3 for 25 at one point. Yeah,
3 pretty flaky ones too. Actually, they were self-inflicted, frankly. So there'll be penitence in the England dressing room.
They don't.
Well, maybe there won't be. Maybe they'll just.
They don't do penitence, mate.
They don't do penitence. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Gideon, tell me this: in the Bazball era, they're compelled to go for the win here, aren't they? Will they back themselves to win this?
Of course. Stokes don't believe in draws.
He goes commando.
We shall see. These 2 parallel test matches involving their 2 teams at the top of the World Test Championship cycle at the moment, England and Australia, because they won their first test matches.
Right. Okay.
All right. The police have arrived for you, Pete. I can hear in the background. So that's probably all we've got time for on Cricket et al. We'll be back tomorrow with an update on the second day's play. Make sure to check out the website. Pete's report on the day's play dropped almost immediately. Stumps were called. So that's the way you should begin your day. First of all, with Pete's written report, and then with our live improvisation afterwards.
Oh, that's the podcast, is it?
Yeah.
There's some other good reading there too.
Well, there is too. Yes.
Yeah, that Ulyati piece from the statistician is one of the better cricket pieces I've read for years.
There's been a strong response to it. Yeah. Thank you, Rodney, for contributing that to us. That's a real tour de force. That's Hunter S. Thompson on the road in Zimbabwe, catching cholera, not getting paid.
And the story about him getting bailed up in the coup and how he actually escaped trouble is one of the great cricket stories of all time, although I can't imagine it was very good to live through it. Well, I guess, yeah.
I'd like to see the Shep boys in that scenario. I'm sure they'd get some great social media out of it.
And Sushant Singh's piece on on the change of name.
On the Tendulkar Anderson Trophy, succeeding the Patali Trophy. That's very thoughtful, very thoughtful. And we had a great piece from Philip Brown this week, another photograph of Philip's, one that he took on the 2016 England tour of Bangladesh. I really enjoy Philip's writing on this subject. Anytime he cares to contribute, we're happy to take him. But in the meantime, that's all we've got time for on Cricket et al. Back tomorrow. In the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
And it's good night from him.